if you've never uttered the words evoke Muldrifter, hold priority, cast Ephemerate, you're not playing Magic right. Like, if those words have never exited your lips, you're missing out. A couple weeks ago, we covered the color white as part of our Cards You Missed series, talking about some underrated cards that you maybe have missed in your scanning through your boxes or scanning through Scryfall or whatever. Cards that we love playing that turn some heads in a specific color. And today we've made it from white all the way to blue following Wooburg order. That is right. Before we get into all of the goodness, my name is Joseph. I'm one of the hosts here at the MTG Thoughtcast, and across the screen or across your ears is my sweet, sweet brother, John Kendall. John, how are you doing, dude?
I'm on top of the command tower tapping for blue.
That he is. You may notice, YouTube watchers, that I'm back home. Finally, it's been a long few weeks of the mobile rig. Appreciate everybody sticking with us through all of the thick and thin of different audio and different backgrounds and all of that. But we're back to much needed regularity starting today, going forward for quite a while. So you'll be looking at this bookshelf background for a minute again.
Because as we know, it takes a real trooper to survive the Canadian wilderness.
Literally, I was in Canada for 2 weeks, and it was too much Canada. As a lover of Canada, I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Love you, Canadians.
There was a lot of Canada. Oh, man. Well, before we get into the real stuff of the episode today, if you scroll down, there's a couple of buttons right below the video. There's likes, comments, subscribes, shares, notifications. Probably 3 dots that will tell you, you know what, just click on the playback speed as well. Just while you're down there, it's just 1.5 playback
Double
speed.
time.
Absolutely. Double time, loop, keep the video going twice as fast. No, we love everybody who is commenting, sharing. We love listening to comments. We love responding to comments. We love listening to feedback, seeing all the likes come through, all the new subscribers. Guys, we last week, we talked about crossing 800, and this week we're close to 900. So let's cross over that 900. Let's cross over that 1,000 soon. Go ahead and hit the subscribes. Huge shout out to everyone who's already doing that. If you're listening on Spotify, you can give us a 5-star review. Super easy, super quick, huge. What else, John? What else is there? There's our Discord. You can join our Discord. It's totally free. It's down below as well. We play Commander games. We brew decks. We do the whole thing. That's all of it. I think that's all of the upkeep.
Take your breath. You got it. You did it all.
It's funny,
fantastic.
Okay, John. Today, in maybe one of our more controversial topics, we're talking about the color blue.
Yeah, it's any person who has played Magic in any capacity across any span of time will know that probably again, there's not much choice when you only have the 5 real colors of play in the game, but there's something about blue that really puts people on tilt.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Honestly, right? In some capacities, when examining it as somebody who's maybe coming into the game for the first time, it can sometimes feel like blue just has access to everything. When you're initially learning and you hear like, oh, the color black is the premier color for removal, and then you find blue cards that are like 5 mana cheaper and destroys.
Yeah.
You hear that, like, green is the prime color for big creatures and ramp, but then you also see blue has, like, the dumbest dragons and leviathans and serpents.
Oh, so good, dude.
And also the best artifact acceleration, technically, but also...
Right.
So it can sometimes feel a little overwhelming to even want to try anything else other than blue. And then you get into the situations where it feels like everything you're playing against is blue, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'm curious where you stand on, like, if you just had to, like, power rank the 5 colors, where does blue sit in that ranking?
That's a real tough question.
Loaded question.
It's a tough question to answer because it depends on the context you're talking about it, right? If you're just talking about like favorites as a color, my favorite color is green. But if you're talking about like the colors in practice,
if you're talking about like paint, I like the color green.
I get it. You loaded up that question there. Good job.
Right. Yeah. I'm more of a chartreuse guy.
But no, there would be rational argument to say that blue just has all the answers to everything, so 100%. arguably makes it like somebody. You would take a scale here. Okay, we have the Power 9 defined as some of the strongest cards of the game.
It's
How
artifacts
many of
in blue.
Artifacts in blue,
right?
Exactly. So
yeah,
that in and of itself is your guidepost to say, oh, blue was made strong from the get-go.
100%. It's definitely one of the more pushed colors. It's the saltiest of the colors, assuredly. Like you only hear people who have had their spells countered in ridiculous ways by free interaction that makes people salty. So I understand why. Like, obviously I was making a joke about this being a controversial topic because blue's an awesome color because it's one of the 5 in the game. But like, I get why people don't like playing against blue. I also get why people don't like playing blue. Like, it takes a lot more mental fortitude to understand when to counterspell something than when to Hero's Downfall something, or when to Doomblade something, or even when to Giant Growth. And like, oh, am I using this as removal? Am I using this as a combat trick? Those are a lot less heady than like threat assessment on the stack. So I understand why people would not want to play blue. I would encourage it. I love playing blue. Blue is one of my favorite colors in the game. I play a ton of blue, and I think that there are ways to play it in non-salty ways that are both fun for your opponents to play against and also fun for you to play. And I think I can just kick us off on one of my first cards. When I think about like cards that people miss when playing blue, one of the first ones that I think of is Split Decision. Speaking of counter spells and speaking of blue, I play this.
You love this card.
I love this card, dude. So Split Decision is a 2-mana instant. It's 1 and a blue, which also is important to me. This is sort of a soapbox for me as well. And I actually even got into this on our Discord this week about how I don't usually play actual counter spell in decks because it's blue counter target spell. I try to find more targeted ones, unless I'm playing mono blue, obviously. If you're playing mono blue, throw your counter spells in all day long because it doesn't matter. But I would rather not be holding a thing that can only do its interaction at a very specific time with pips that require very specific lands in play to do it. So I always look for things like Split Decision that are 1 and a blue and do some targeted interaction. So Split Decision, it's a 2-mana instant. It has Will of the Council on it, which is from OG Conspiracy. So it says choose target instant or sorcery spell. Starting with you, each player votes for denial or duplication. If denial gets more votes, counter the spell. If duplication gets more votes or the vote is tied, copy the spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So this may seem like juxtaposition because I'm also one to advocate for not giving your opponents choices in the game, but all of the Will of the Council cards are giving your opponents a choice between bad and worse for them. So like, the joy of Split Decision is that you get to make the person casting the spell vote for whether I get a copy as well, or if it's not worth me getting a copy and they have to counter their own spell. So it brings the whole table into it. I love mini games. I'm a Mario Party guy. Like all these Will of the Council cards feel like Mario Party to me, where I'm like, okay, guys, stop the main game. We need to vote on whether I get a copy of this or it gets countered.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting Split Decision as my number 1 blue card that most people have missed and should probably be played more often. Obviously, you'd be looking for it in a deck that you're already playing maybe miscast or you're playing negates in, that you could just throw a Split Decision in as well. And like, it's pretty good against board wipes because there's likely to be another player who doesn't want a board wipe to happen. So the tie should be pretty easy to counter a spell and it becomes actual negate. Or if someone plays like a demonic tutor or something like that you get to go like, I'm going to put Split Decision on the table. You need to decide whether you are going to counter your own demonic tutor or whether I get to demonic tutor as well. let alone card draw spells, all of these things. Like there's just so many, it splits decisions to happen. So it's super, super fun.
Yeah, and these kinds of cards with the Will of the Council always have just such a very interesting pull at the game as soon as it goes onto the stack, because you've got yourself, the person involved with the spell, and at least 2 other people at the table that are going to need to like start thinking about it as well, even if they're the ones who aren't involved, right? If you are player A and you're targeting this at player B, you've got 2 others who have no involvement in this spell other than helping make the decision of, do they want to also give you a copy of this, or do they also want that instant sorcery
and
counter,
you can start swinging votes. You can be like, hey, if you vote in my direction, you get a free favor from me later in the game. Like it's so politicky, which obviously I love that aspect of Commander. It creates stories as well of like that this person had to counter their own board wipe. Like they had to vote against their better decision so that I didn't also get something to happen. So it just creates really good stories. It's a role playing aspect to the Commander game.
Yeah, talking about like the stories that can involve with this as well. Like if you think about it, if the duplication part on this spell ends up happening, you get your copy to go off first before the original does.
Yeah,
so,
dude.
Depending on what the spell is, your own copy of it could like do some other action to the game board that then basically stops the original person's, right?
Right.
It could. Like there's just so many variables and random chance that can happen. It's very cool.
It's really great against counter spells. Like this is a straight up counter spell where no matter what they choose, it's going to counter. So like let's say they played counter spell, then you do split decision. If the vote's tied, their counter spell gets countered. If duplication goes off, then you get a counter spell and can target their counter spell. So at very minimum, this is counter a counter spell, and that's the floor for it. And then the ceiling is just up from there and gets ridiculous.
Yeah. No, I like it. It's very, very cool. But speaking of way up to the ceiling, let's talk about a completely different card from counter spells. Let me tell you about one of my favorite blue creature producers.
Okay,
of all time.
I'm ready.
This is one of my favorite blink targets in my Brago deck called Cloud Form.
Oh, it's so good, dude.
Cloud Form comes from the Fate Reforged set originally. It is 1 in double blue for an enchantment. When Cloud Form enters the battlefield, it becomes an aura with enchant creature. Manifest the top card of your library and attach Cloud Form to it. The enchanted creature has flying and hexproof.
God, dude, that hexproof is so good on there.
So just as a quick reminder, we did just have like Duskmourn not too terribly long ago, so hopefully people do kind of know what Manifest is all about. But this original form of Manifest just said you took a card from a particular zone, sometimes your hand, sometimes the top of your library, and it goes face down as a colorless, no-name 2/2 that can be flipped up for its mana cost if it is a creature. The deck that I run this in is my Brago King Eternal deck. So the real spice that we're able to do and helps also bypass the downside of Manifest as well. If you manifest pretty much anything that isn't a creature, it's usually always just stuck there as a 2/2. When blinking these permanents repeatedly with Brago's trigger to have them exit and re-enter, I can have anything that is almost anything.
Oops. Omniscience.
Yeah, you actually, just as a fun rules thing, you actually can't even target instants or sorceries if they're face down. That's just a fun little
really?
Rule. Yeah, you can't even target them. Or like you can't because you know what the card is under there. And if somebody else attempts to, the game forces you to reveal that it is an instant or sorcery underneath there. It's a fun little rules interaction.
Wait, hold on, explain this to me more. You can't target it with something that would flip it over, or
correct.
Like blinking it out and coming back in. Would it just never come back in?
Well, no, you can't target it, period. You can't. And then if an opponent, because they don't know what the card is, if an opponent attempts to target it, you have to reveal that it is an illegal target. And then it just stays as a face down. It's weird. It doesn't come up a lot, but you make these weird states. And that's one of the benefits of Manifest, because your opponent may just not know what is hiding under there. So The other strong part, obviously, about this card is the fact that the card itself turns into an aura that then enchants that face-down creature with flying and hexproof. That's really, really huge. So even if you're not blinking that creature immediately out and in, if you're able to flip it over from its manifest side, you now have got a brand new creature come down into play cheap. And it still naturally has that evasion and protection onto it as well, which is huge.
Yeah, evasion is one of the great things that blue does.
Mm-hmm.
Flying, unblockable, these are all on a lot of blue creatures.
This enchantment is a very strong embodiment of some of the strongest evasion and protection keywords that blue is able to offer to you. Flying and hexproof is some of the most prevalent keywords amongst the blue. So being able to just throw those kinds of abilities permanently onto any 2/2 that comes down into play, and then you start abusing things like blinking shenanigans and recasting this like back from hand, like bounce it, pick it back up, play it again. There's lots of cool interactions that you could do with here. I'm a full advocate of this card. If you're playing any kind of deck in any capacity that wants creatures or permanents entering and like exiting and blinking and anything like that, give Cloudform a try, because it's like one of the fastest blue creature ramps that you can play.
Yes. I'll piggyback off of that into another unbelievable blue blink target that way more people should be playing. I encounter so many people that I have to like convince on this card, and you already know I'm talking about Muldrifter, baby. You already know. I will die on the hill of Muldrifter is one of the best blue cards that you can be playing. And it used to be such a prevalent card in Commander, and I feel like people think that Muldrifter has sort of phased out due to like power creep, because like at its core, I'll read Muldrifter real quick. Muldrifter is a 5 mana 2/2 flying that enters the battlefield and draws 2 cards. And you can evoke it for 2 in a blue, which means you can pay its evoke cost. It enters. The ETB goes on the stack, but so does a trigger to sacrifice the creature on the stack. So it comes in, ETB, you sacrifice it on top of it. So you sacrifice the creature, then you draw the 2. That alone is divination, which I love divination. Any like divination style, like I pay 3 mana, I get 2 cards out of it. Anything that's like actual card advantage, I'm pretty in. I don't play divination in my decks because I'd rather play Muldrifter, but or like stock up. Like there's some really good versions of divination, but we're talking about floors and ceilings. The floor for Muldrifter is divination. It's a sorcery speed, 3 mana, draw 2 cards with some other fluff on the stack. But that other fluff is where the sauce is. Like, let's say if you've never scammed in a Muldrifter where like you're playing a blue black deck and you have like Not Actually Dead or whatever one of those like black cards are that like it gives it +1/+1, and when it dies it comes back tapped, or like any of those, or even like reanimate, like you evoke it in and then you reanimate. That one's kind of bad because you lose 5 life, but getting the ETB multiple times via the evoke is such a strong way to play Muldrifter. So any type of like creature based deck that wants to be playing or that wants to be drawing cards, which spoiler alert, every Commander deck wants to be drawing cards, Muldrifter is just a piece of glue that like I try to find reasons to not play it, and I never do. Like it's just basically in all of my blue decks because there's some ridiculous thing that you can do with it.
Yeah, like you were talking about the synergies that you can abuse with the fact that if you can have it enter and then re-enter again while that evoke is sitting on the stack, you get all that exponential card draw. But let's not forget about the fact that this is a 5 mana spell that you can cast for 3.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about Up the Beanstalk, baby.
Are you playing Cascade? You can cast this for 3 mana, draw your cards, and then you Cascade for 4 or less.
Yeah,
at that point, because this is a 5 mana spell.
It doesn't get hit by anything below Cascade 5. So like if you're cascading 4, you're gonna sneak past this draw 2 card spell. Like this is exactly like Rakshas's Bargain that we talked about the other day. Of like anything in those cascade decks that can be tricky makes them so good. And Muldrifter is a tricky card.
My personal story from a few weeks ago here was doing a Muldrifter for its evoke cost, and with both of those triggers sitting there on the stack, I sacrificed this into a food chain That
Oh,
was
it's so good.
yeah, that turned 3 mana into 2 additional cards and then 6 mana usable for creatures. Of which
Absolutely.
that was then followed up with a creature who cared specifically about cards in hand. So just the pair of those together just worked out tremendously. And you can do all kinds of other shenanigans like that, right? Like Joseph just said, is that when you have it come in off of its evoke, it sits there for a brief minute. So as long as you get priority to, say, activate abilities or cast other spells, you can take advantage of the fact that it is there on the battlefield ready to go, to sacrifice it into something like Viscera Seer, sacrifice it into Food Chain, blink it with Ephemerate.
Bro, I'm just about to say, if you've never uttered the words evoke Muldrifter, hold priority, cast Ephemerate, you're not playing Magic right. Like, if those words have never exited your lips, you're missing out.
It's great. It's very, very cool.
That's all I got to say about Muldrifter. Just play more of it.
Play more Muldrifter. Joseph approves.
Take me away. You were talking about some artifact ramp, John. I'd love to hear a bit about your philosophies on Blue's ramp.
I mean, it mostly just ends up having creatures that can produce you either like blue or colorless for like a specific like subset of cards or anything like that. There's a lot of these, like there's one off dome I can think of as like Apprentice Wizard or something like that. It makes 3, but it's usable only for instants and sorceries. And so like those types of ramp pieces are not usable everywhere, but in the instances where they are super helpful, that like that could be cool. Or like if it's a blue creature that makes an exponential amount of mana usable only for like activated abilities, there are some like combo-y shenanigans there of like being able to have it untap, produce more mana, blah, blah, blah.
Dude, let me tell you the one I've been really into lately. It's Omen Hawker. That's been my favorite of those like conditional blue ramp pieces. It's a functionally a soul ring for activated abilities.
Yeah,
so it's a single blue mana. I think it's a 1/2, and it can tap to make 2 mana for artifact abilities. Similarly, the Enigma Jewel, which is an actual artifact that costs a blue, comes in tapped. It's a soul ring for activated abilities, and then has some stupid craft with other creatures or whatever.
Yeah, those are all really cool. But I have, talking about ramp, I promise all of these are not just going to be blue blink targets. I promise. But this
we just
one,
both play a lot of blue blink.
It's one of its strongest characteristics.
100%.
It's one of the coolest things you can be doing. We were talking about how blue can sometimes end up lead to salty game scenarios when you're like, oh, I'll just free counter your thing. I'll just I'll destroy all your creatures. I'll Cyclonic Rift. No, do some blue blink shenanigans. That's one of the funnest characteristics you could do with it.
So wet.
So let me tell you about one of my favorite anti-ramp techs that Blue has had. I
hate this card. I can't believe you're talking about this.
Do you know the card I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can't remember its name, but I know what it does.
This is my favorite anti-ramp piece called Confounding Conundrum. I love this card. Ever since it came out, I knew that just like this is something that every blue deck that isn't like, even if you are doing the ramp itself, because it's just so one-sided, you get to progress your own game plan faster than most anybody else while not just being resource denial in a way. But
dude, why does it draw a card? Why does it cantrip?
Let me read the card and then we'll go into this here. So Confounding Conundrum is 1 and a blue. It is from the Zendikar Rising booster set originally. It is an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Just out the gate, replaces itself. Amazing. Wall of text. When a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player had another land enter the battlefield under their control this turn, they return a land they control to its owner's hand. So
it's a
little
keeps
wordy.
Everybody fair.
Yep. It's a little wordy, but what that means is if somebody has done a single land drop so far for the turn, great, nothing happens. Any other land that comes into the battlefield under their control past that first one, doesn't matter how that other land got there. If they had any other land come in, they then at that point have to pick one of them back up. Now, That land can be anything that they want to, though, right? So, like, if they want to bring a tapped land back to their hand, they can do that. Do they want to bring back up to their hand the extra land that they just played? That can happen too. Totally their choice as well. You're not destroying the land. You're not stopping them from playing extra lands. All you're doing is discouraging them from having more than one come into play at any one point. And that's what I like the most about this card, is that you are slowing down these ramp heavy decks while not directly being resource denial. So there's a nice fair balance to this, unless you're abusing synergies with it, which is like where I have this deck, and I have this in a couple decks that can abuse that. But
this is with like Veteran Explorer, where it like forces people to put lands into play.
My saltiest pair I run this with is actually with Yarok the Desecrated, because the way Yarok is
oh, gross.
the way Yarok is worded is that if anything triggers on my board from a permanent entering the battlefield, it goes again. Confounding Conundrum triggers off of opponent's lands entering the battlefield. So that is then, if you play an extra land, you got to pick up 2 lands. And it's stupid, but that's a rough combo synergy. I like playing this in the sense, like I said, with like blink pieces, like in Brago again, where this keeps your hand filled up if you keep bouncing it in and out.
You
and
keep blinking it, it just keeps drawing cards.
Even the floor with a card like this is a super punishing to anyone who is especially heavy in fetch lands, right? Because
fetch lands or green decks.
Yeah, think about it with a fetch land, is that to actually do the fetch land thing, you have to play it down as your land. And then you go and fetch with it, and that other land enters the battlefield at that point. So unless they are holding that fetch land off until it is not their turn cycle, which for some people can be detrimental, not everybody is running the same package of fetches and shocks and duels. So their fetch land that they could do off turn may not necessarily come in untapped or anything like that. So you've got the reassurance that they're not going to have any of that mana they need off turn to interrupt what you're doing.
True. There's 2 reasons why I really love this card. One, Commander is obviously a play more than one land a turn format. Like, you want to be playing your Rampant Growths, you want to be playing your Cultivates, all of these things. You want to be playing your Wayfarer's Baubles in your non-green decks. Like, there's ways to play multiple lands in basically any color, and you're pretty heavily incentivized for doing it. Like, even like Solemn Simulacrum is like gets hosed by Confounding Conundrum. The strategy reason I love this is that blue is a color that wants to be the best in the late game. And what green has on top of blue in that case is ramping, where like they can ramp and get to their late game before blue can get to the late game and dominate. So what Confounding Conundrum does for a 2 mana and even just replacing itself in your hand is just guarantees that you're all getting to the same late game at the same time.
Yep.
It's awesome. Oh, it's my turn. Oh, it's my turn.
Pass priority.
Okay. I feel like we haven't talked about a lot of creatures yet. So I'll do a little double creature feature here. Because they're kind of the same thing. I want to talk about one from a spiritual perspective, and there's another one that's just kind of strictly better than it. So if you've paid any attention to any of my decks that I build, or paid attention on this podcast whatsoever in the last 2 years, you know that I love Lutter Elcor. It is perhaps my favorite creature in the game. Lutter Elcor is 1 and a blue. It's a 1/1 core rogue. It has an ability called Shadow, which means it can't be blocked, and it can only block or be blocked by other creatures with Shadow. So like it's like flying plus. It's horsemanship. So when Lutter Elcor deals damage to an opponent, you draw a card and discard a card. This does everything I want it to do. It is a cheap, evasive creature that it is unbelievably evasive, because unless someone's playing Dalthy Voidwalker, they probably don't have another card with Shadow. Or their own Lutter Elcor, but even then you're not trading Lutter Elcors. I love looting. Looting is one of my favorite things to do in the game, which is shorthand for draw, discard. And that's exactly what this does. It hits, it draws, it discards. So it just keeps your hand not full, but it keeps your hand selective. to where like you're either like the floor of it is, oh, I have too many lands in my hands, I'm going to draw a land and discard a land, and now I know that my top deck isn't going to be that land. The ceiling for it is enabling reanimator shenanigans. Of course, Joseph's speed runs to reanimator strategy, and Lutter Elcor is just one of those glue pieces that just holds those kinds of strategies together, where I can guarantee that once a turn, I'm going to be able to swing in with this, hit somebody with it, and I'm going to draw and discard. You may be asking why I play this over Merfolk Looter, which is an activated ability to, it's a very similar thing, but it's a tap to draw and discard. And my answer to that is Unga Bunga Swingy Boing Boing. So I like doing damage. And like, you know, you and I have talked about this before, like creatures like this just wear equipment and auras and Voltron so well because they're naturally evasive, and especially something like Shadow, which is for all intents and purposes unblockable. Now, granted, you can't block with it either because it has Shadow, but like if you're,
it's not gonna be blocking anyway.
It's not going to be untapped to block. It's a 1/1. Yeah, it's stupid. So as I mentioned, there's sort of a companion piece to this, which is Shoreline Looter from Bloomborough, which is it's a strictly upgrade on Lutter Elcor. So it's 1 and a blue for a 1/1 rat rogue that just straight up can't be blocked. But it has this threshold ability. So it says whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card, then discard a card, unless 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. So you, after 7 cards in your graveyard, you just draw a card when it hits, which is awesome. It becomes
I've never seen this card.
Dude, it's sick. It is functionally a better version of Lutter Elcor. I don't like it a lot better because, I mean, if I'm playing one, I'm probably playing both, to be honest. But I like the ability to discard because I'm usually playing these cards with some type of reanimator or something that cares about the graveyard. So not that I would ever complain about like hit and draw a card. Like that's also fine, but I really prefer the Lutter Elcor ability of draw a card and discard a card. That's like one of my favorite things that blue creatures do.
Is the looting, right?
Is the looting.
Excellent. Would you like to hear about one of my other favorite aspects of blue that I promise is not blink this time?
Hit me.
One of my favorite other aspects that blue is able to do that you don't get to see as much with Commander, because how useful is it? Like, this is kind of going to turn into sort of you don't see a lot of the hand disruption discard spells with black, because when you got 3 other players, hitting a single person to just rip 1 card out of their hand is not as crazy useful.
Yeah, but no one plays Thoughtseize in Commander.
No, but blue gets a good options to sometimes hit a single player and look at everything they've got going on. Or you get
Are you talking about telepathy, dude?
We're talking about telepathy again. We're talking about telepathy again, boys. You all are not playing enough telepathy, and I'm telling you, your game plans will just become way better if you get to see everything that's coming. I'll try to keep this brief because we have had this conversation about telepathy before, but the card as a whole, it is a single blue enchantment that your opponents play with their hands revealed. That's all it does. It doesn't give you any extra cards. It doesn't give them any extra cards. It gives you knowledge. And knowledge is the key
power
to your power. Exactly. So what does this offer to you as the table is concerned? Well, the first thing that you will notice with this card is that it is one-sided. Only your opponents play with their hands revealed, not you. So you get to stay as tricky and conniving and degenerate blue stuff that you enjoy playing, no matter what scale you're doing it on.
You can like be holding your own interaction and just look around the table and go like, Jerry has a kill spell for that. Jerry should use the kill spell for that thing, even though you're holding your own.
Precisely. That's the second aspect that this card offers to the table. This allows your opponents to see everything else that each of the other opponents is going to be doing, because there would be no way for a card like this to just have your cards revealed to just you as a single player. Like, you could do that on a digital client, but if you're playing this in paper, there's just no way for just you to just have knowledge of these cards without all of your opponents having that knowledge as well. So you get to work that to your advantage as far as like playing politics at the table. You tell player A, who you can see the cards in their hand, that they've got the piece that they need to stop player C, who you can also see all the cards you have in their hand. There's no tricks, there's no shenanigans, there's no bluffing. Nobody can bypass any tricks on you. But again, like I said, because you get to keep your hand secret, you get to basically still play the politic game of, I might have something I could help, but I see you have removal over there. And it's neat. It's very, very cool. It can this have some negative consequences as far as like the play group is concerned? I suppose so, because, players love touching their cards. So just not having them in hand essentially can sometimes lead to some feel bads.
Right.
And you could get ganged up on maybe a little bit if the fact that you have your hand secret, and so everyone else is now playing free game, and they're like, oh, well, we don't get to see what you're playing, so let's just go swing in at you. But
yeah. Well, the hope is that one of the players sort of reveals that they have a way to win the game in their hand. And then all of the heat from your telepathy is then directed at like, well, we could deal with the telepathy player, but if we do that, then Jerry is just going to win. Like he's got Oracle combo in his hand or whatever.
Yeah, right. What's one of the biggest feel bads when it comes to Commander is somebody just going, oh, I had these cards in my hand. Play my card. That's an infinite. I win.
Right.
And there's, no amount of responses or targeted removal or combat or anything matters if an opponent can go unchecked of combo piece, I win.
Right.
And a card like Telepathy helps see those things coming.
Yeah, I'm into it, dude.
I'm a huge fan.
I like it. I'm curious because I'm going to go ahead and predict that some of the comments are going to say Telepathy is a bad card. It's sort of the online consensus for it. This is me playing devil's advocate. Can you just give a preemptive response to someone saying, oh, well, Telepathy is negative card advantage, or, oh, Telepathy is just a salty feels bad?
That sounds like a skill issue.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks. Okay. Skill issue.
No,
John Kendall, 2025, get good.
No, I went over those points. Like I said, like if you have the secrets pile in your hand, somebody could like be calling you out for your tricks.
For sure.
But just the openness of the table that everybody gets to see, I feel like a card like Telepathy helps encourage more game interaction.
For sure. Well, let's start talking about some actual card advantage in that case, since this is distinctly not card advantage. One of the most beautiful things that blue does is just clean cut card advantage, where you're just drawing cards. I'm curious to hear yours, but I'll start us off and we'll kind of land the plane here of some of your favorite card advantage engines in blue. One that you maybe have this on your list, but I want to talk about Varity Circle.
I don't.
Oh, dude. Okay, so Varity Circle. It's 2 and a blue. This is from Guilds of Ravnica? It's from one of
Ravnica Allegiance is the original set for this one.
Yes, yep. Ravnica Allegiance. So Varity Circle is 2 and a blue, and what it says is whenever a creature it's an enchantment. I'm sorry. Whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped, if it isn't being declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. So like mana dorks, activated abilities. If you are playing any type of like icy manipulator, which you wouldn't be. Oh, sorry. It also has 4 and a blue, tap target creature without flying. I've never seen that activated.
I've done that once.
Well, it's the thing is like talking about floors and ceilings. The floor for this is you can just pay 5 mana, tap the biggest creature that doesn't have flying, and draw a card off of it. And like the ceiling is near Ristic Study levels of card draw. Maybe not that intense, but it's a good budget alternative. For another 3 mana enchantment to be drawing as many cards as this is going to draw you. Just like, I would say, if you're playing blue, do yourself like a mental note the next time you're playing a game, and go like, from turn 3 on, just count how many times this would activate in a game to decide whether it's worthwhile in your play group or not. Because you might have somebody who's playing like Elf Ball, and they're just playing like Elvish Mystic, Fintorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, Priest of Titania, Selvala, like all of these like mana dorks or activated abilities. Or if somebody's playing like a Sisay deck that like taps to search for a creature, anything like that, you just get card draw off of that. You just get so much advantage off of your opponents playing their game strategies. So I think there's meta games or like play groups where this doesn't do anything if you're playing real like battle cruiser heavy, but anything outside of that is just going to draw you a ton of cards.
Yeah, there was definitely one of the reasons I put this in a deck of mine. It's because I had a friend who was playing specifically the Amara Soul of the Accord, whose whole game plan was tapping Amara multiple times to make tokens.
Bro, I played Tokasha Dig Site Mentor. That whole deck is
surveils.
My creatures can tap to surveil one.
Right. But then even outside of that, let's say you are taking advantage of this card in and of itself. You are built around the idea of making sure your opponent's creatures remain tapped all the time, right? Like this card came out way before Hilda of the Icy Crown or that stupid, what is it, Sphere of Sleep Paralysis? I think that nightmare was from Duskmourn that like Constellation tapped a thing, put a stun counter, blah blah blah. You know,
I think it actually was Fear of Sleep Paralysis.
Yeah. Even just take the sorcery called Sleep. It's just 2 blue, tap all your opponent's creatures.
Oh yeah, because this is not when one or more creatures becomes tapped. This is whenever a creature an opponent controls becomes tapped.
Yep.
So if you have some way to tap down the board or whatever, like if you're playing like Don't Move. Like that board wipe that's like all tapped creatures become, whatever, and they have a way to tap all their creatures. This just turns into refill my hand. I love it, dude. I'm really into Varity Circle.
It's very cool. Yeah, it's one of my favorites, at least as far as like a budget-ristic study is concerned.
Exactly.
Like you said, you'll get the triggers to go off semi-frequently, I feel like.
Yeah, probably, like I would say you can probably count on this once to twice per turn cycle past like turn 3-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Anything above that, it's just gravy.
On the subject of big budget alternatives, let's say that in the typical Blue Manor fashion, you are sick of playing Cyclonic Rift. Or you just are not choosing to play it anymore because it's on the Game Changers list. You know?
Right. Playing in brackets too.
That'd be a very fair reason to remove Cyclonic Rift from your deck. What would be a decent alternative, something like that? And before I get to mine, I'm actually kind of curious, what would you play as an alternative to Cyclonic Rift?
Oh, man. My heart wants to say River's Rebuke, but that only targets one player.
Okay.
I'm just, that's me being a Brawl player, and like River's Rebuke is cracked. Ugin's Binding?
That's a decent one. That is very good. Yeah,
but that's also because I play a lot of artifact creatures and a lot of fair. I will trigger the second ability probably in most of my decks. I'm curious where you're gonna hit with this.
All right. How about a Cyclonic Rift that lets you put a big fatty back down into play?
I'm in.
This is called Flood of Tears.
Yeah, dude.
Originally from Core Set 2020, this is 4 and double blue for a sorcery. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If you returned 4 or more non-token permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this is not even a riff on Cyclonic Rift. This is a riff on a banned card. This is a riff on Upheaval, which is return all permanents to hand. So, like, if you're playing Flood of Tears, you're probably building around it to the point where you're going to have extra mana floating and are going to be able to put all of your stuff back in play anyway. The fact that Flood of Tears just naturally puts your best thing into play back in anyway is sweet. I love Flood of Tears, man.
Right. My favorite thing about this card in specific is like the card is not going to be checking. Like if you notice there on the wording, it does not say of the permanents you pick back up, you get to put one of them back down into play. You just got anything else chilling in your hand at this point. You just go, like you said, just like fill some mana, 6 mana, pick everything up as long as you are bouncing back 4 non-token permanents, which is not hard. Remember, you're playing this with blue and specifically double blue. Like how many blue decks are doing their artifact ramping? Like you just said, we've got our soul rings and our arcane signets and midnight clocks and things of that nature. And then the other blue, just like little dorks, like you said, like these 2 and 1 mana enchantments that we've been talking about all night.
Yeah.
That you put all of those down, cast this, pick everything back up, and just like, oh, I don't know, I'll put like a Blightsteel Colossus down into play. Or
drop an Omniscience and then drop your entire hand back down.
Precisely, yeah. In that regard, you're paying 6 mana for the biggest, dumbest idiot back in your hand, of which that probably will go unchecked. Or if it does end up getting checked, that means that your opponents are then not replaying the stuff that you just sent back to their hand, because like this is hitting everybody, just as a reminder, you know?
Right.
I like this. Like, you still have to, like, unlike Cyclonic Rift, there's no cheaper alternative way to cast this naturally as is. So you still do have to get to that 6 mana. But like we were talking about here, is that you will be playing things like your artifact ramp and things of that nature that, like, you can sacrifice tokens into this beforehand, like treasures and stuff like that, to cast it. Then you just pick up all your things, and, sorcery speed, meh, there had to be a downside to it somewhere, but, like, if you have to...
You're not doing this at instant speed. Oh my god. That would be broken. Yeah. That would be Cyclonic Rift.
Right. So just... I like it. I'm a very big fan of this one.
It's a really good, like, blue doesn't get board wipes. So it's a really good way to do a board wipe. I find myself playing Whelming Wave quite a bit in a very similar place.
That's
where
a very good one too, yeah.
Sort of a board wipe, but Flood of Tears is awesome. I love it. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up with a quick rapid fire question here. I want you to hit me with your favorite blue planeswalker for us to close out here.
Oh, I mean, the instant go-to classic has to be Party Jace.
Oh, you go Party Jace. You go Howling Mind Jace.
Yeah, he's a classic for a reason. He's, in my experience, talking about when, like, planeswalkers usually get hated out into oblivion when they come down into play. Almost nobody is interested in knocking down Jace Beleren a peg, simply just because if you just keep the cards coming to everybody else, they're going to be perfectly fine with him just sitting there.
Right, it's fair.
Outside of that...
I'm the exact opposite, where my favorite's Narset Partner of Veils, which is make sure that nobody can draw more than one card.
None of it. My other personal favorite is Tezzeret the Seeker, just because for the same...
yes, dude.
A similar thing of very blink abusable, where you use his middle negative to go tutor yourself an artifact, blink him out, blink him in, and then he's reset on his loyalty that you go do another artifact, and, like... Hey,
real quick, can you just drop in here what the John Says Blink count was for this episode?
It'll be here.
Right. I love it, man. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, blue, I feel like I associate planeswalkers with being blue. That's like all of the good ones that I can think of, and it's probably some remnant of Jace the Mind Sculptor just being an absolute menace, despite the fact that it's not really a menace anymore and also is not $150 anymore. Those are just like some of the best planeswalkers are in blue. So just wanted to ask you that real quick before we wrap up. But this was awesome. I love talking blue. I love talking weird blue things. So I could go on for another hour, but I won't do that to our dear listeners. If you do want to have some deeper discussion about some of our favorite things blue, John, where can the good people listening find us?
If you'd like to reach out to us as far as this content is concerned, please drop us a comment down below.
Absolutely.
We both respond to almost everybody.
Yeah. Do you tag yourself? I always sign myself as Joseph.
Yep. Just because, we both have access to the same account, so it's cool to, like, see, like, who's responding. You know what I mean?
Mom let us share a password.
If you're down there, that means you're super close to the like comments. No, you're already commenting. You're already near by the like button. Do that again.
Right.
Hit the like, unlike, and then like again.
100%. It's like the trolley in Mr. Rogers. It has to go backwards before it goes forward.
Yeah, you got it. You got it.
While you're commenting, though, if you want to get direct access to us to talk about all things blue or all things MTG or whatever, join our Discord. That's where we are constantly. I'm literally there all the time. Answering questions, having fun. We're literally jumping off of recording this to go and play a game of Commander right after this. So if you want to be a part of that, join our Discord. It's totally free. We'd love to have you there. If you want to drop us maybe a more constructed thing, you can find us in any entity on Blue Sky. That is at mtgthoughtcast.bsky.social. To find the show, and then each of us are individually on as John-Thoughtcast, and I'm Joseph-Thoughtcast. John posts cards of the day and toy photography, and I post bad rap lyrics. You can find all of that and more on our Blue Sky, and you can find us on Spotify. You can find us all those 5-star reviews.
You're obligated to come to our Blue Sky being the blue episode today.
That's right. Oh, Blue Sky. You did it, John. You won the episode. Big brain. Oh, man. Well, I think that's everything. You have any parting thoughts before I sign us off, John?
Congratulations on making it through an entire Blue episode without us talking about Thoughtcast.
Wow. Yeah, roll the credits, I guess. This has been the MTG Thoughtcast. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.